Hey folks, it's Rob from Rob's Movie Collection. I've noticed, and I'm sure you've all noticed, that the newest trend in TV seems to be doing continuations of old TV shows. Not reboots, but continuations. Will and Grace did this. Roseanne has just had a big hit with it. I understand that Murphy Brown is to be next. And it got me thinking. I don't think that always works necessarily. There are a lot of shows I think that had bad endings that actually could probably benefit from them. I don't know that it works for all of them. Like, I don't think it worked for Will and Grace necessarily. For those of you who remember the ending of that show, it ended with Will and Grace going their separate ways and marrying other people and having children with other people and not seeing each other for 20 years until their two kids come together in college. And then they meet up again and they come back together and renew their friendship. It was kind of sad that they weren't together for 20 years, but it also made sense because those two characters were way too connected to each other to be able to have relationships with anybody else. And in separating like that, they were able to have families. So in doing the continuation now, they kind of retconned all that and they got rid of it all. And now you've got Will and Grace in their 50s, alone, with each other, but not with anybody else and with no kids. And that seems kind of sad to me, just because they wanted to make a little more money on the show, or maybe the actors' careers weren't going well enough, so they figured they'd go back to the well. So I was thinking, how about actually doing some shows that maybe didn't have a great ending and that actually deserve a continuation that would make it worth it. So here's my list of 5 of those shows that I think, or at least for me, could have a decent continuation and maybe to fix what, in my opinion, wasn't too good. At number 5, I've got The Wonder Years. The Wonder Years aired from 1988 to 1993 and starred Fred Savage as Kevin Arnold, and it was a story of his life growing up in the 60s, I believe, and early 70s. That was during the Vietnam time and all that. And one of the main things of the show was his relationship with the girl next door, Winnie Cooper, played by Danica McKellar. So it was one of those slice of life shows, and it was comedic, but at the same time, it was one of those shows. I mean, it was set during the Vietnam era. I mean, I think the first episode deals with Winnie Cooper's brother's death in Vietnam. So it was that type of show, and the writers approached it in a kind of this is real life type situation, and that's fine. But during the course of the show, Kevin and Whitney got into a relationship, and they had ups and downs, and finally, on the last show, in the finale, they show them all at an Independence Day parade, and you hear the narrator, who was Daniel Stern, pretty much saying what happened to everybody, and the father died, and the brother went on to this or that, and he says that Winnie and Kevin ended up breaking up and they never got back together again. They were friends, but he ended up marrying someone else and having kids, and that was kind of a bummer. Now, I understand how they were trying to write and all, and that's fine and all. And the writers wanted to show kind of like, well, this is what real life is, and sometimes you have to leave childhood behind and move on, and that's great, and we want it to be more realistic and all that, and that's fine. But I think that sometimes you just have to give the audience what they want a little bit. I mean, there is something to that. And frankly, I always thought, well, why is it so unrealistic that they would have ended up together? I didn't think it was an unrealistic thing. Yes, in life that does happen where you go your separate ways and things don't always work out the way you want them to, but sometimes they do. And there's plenty of people out there who can attest to that. So I thought, hey, you should give that to the audience. So that would be one that I wouldn't mind going back and maybe changing a bit. Next to number 4, I've got Cheers. Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows. Cheers ran from 1982 to 1993, 11 seasons. That's pretty long. And it had great writers. They had written Taxi as well, the same creators, starring Ted Danson and Shelley Long and just a whole lot of other people, Woody Harrelson, and So one of the big things on this show was a relationship between Sam and Diane. Of course, everybody remembers Sam and Diane. Shelley Long played Diane, and the writers just did a great job because you couldn't have had 2 more separate, different people characters than these two people. So it was fun watching them kind of get together and then breaking up and still realizing that they love each other. And finally, at the end, Shelley Long decided to leave after 5 years to pursue a movie career, which never went anywhere. And she kind of put the writers in a difficult situation because they had done such a good job of getting these characters together, and they put them through so much that, frankly, Diane wouldn't have left. And unfortunately, they were in a position where they had to write her out somehow. And Diane, who had wanted to be a writer from the very beginning, gets a chance to finally finish her novel that she'd been working on so long. Her mentor, her former professor, tells her that if she finishes it, she can get it published. So he offers her cabin in the woods to go out for 3 months and finish writing this novel, saying, well, you can't write it while you're being married and being a mother and taking the kids to school and all that. So Diane goes off to do this, and she says she'll be back in 3 months. And of course, at the beginning of the next season, she never came back. Well, you find out 6 years later in the season finale, when she guest starred again, that she didn't finish it and she was too embarrassed to come back. Well, that just didn't ring true. That didn't make any sense. Diane, the character, had gone through so much more embarrassing things. She had once been in an insane asylum, and she was able to come back to Cheers. So that didn't make any sense at all. Sam himself had gone all the way to Italy for her to tell her that he loves her. None of it made any sense that she wouldn't have come back. So in the last episode, they kind of get together again, and they decide to be together, and you're watching this going, oh, that's great. At least they finally got together again. But then at the last minute, as they're on the plane going to California, they decide that, oh, this isn't going to work. Like, really? After all that, after waiting 6 years for her to come back, you're gonna just pull the rug out from under us again. It really sucked. Now, I understand it would have been kind of like a last-minute Hail Mary type thing. Look, a sports reference. But, and it wouldn't have been the best writing to have them get together in the last episode. I mean, they could have had her come in for like half a season or something to build that up again. But no. But you know what? It would have been fine, because as a fan, I would have loved to have seen Sam and Diane finally get together. And in the end, they both end up alone. And he just ends up alone in the bar. It was so sad and pathetic. Now, they did a similar thing on that 70s show, where Eric left for a year, and it was the worst season, the worst last season of the show. And then he came back for the last episode, and it wasn't even the full episode, it was the last 10 minutes of the show, and he and Donna got back together again. Yeah, it was quick, and it was kind of a last-minute thing, but you know what? It felt good as an audience member. It's like, well, at least the show's done, and at least Donna and Eric are together again. And maybe the Cheers writer should have thought of that for the fans. I know fan service isn't a great thing, but you know what? After 11 seasons, come on, you could have thrown us a bone. Next up, I got How I Met Your Mother, the story of Ted Mosby. It ran from 2005 to 2014, with the character of Ted telling his kids about the story about how he met their mother. And this, of course, goes through a lot of different other stories for the entire time it ran. Now, in the first season, he meets Robin, one of his friends, and you think, oh, maybe this is the mother, but it turns out that she's not the mother. And, you know, they were a good couple together, and you like them, and then they break up, and you kind of, as an audience member, you grieve, and like, oh, they're not together again. Well, obviously the mother's going to be someone else, and now you have to put us through this. Okay, fine. We got through it. And then they get her together with Barney, who was this big womanizer, and the last season was lame as hell because the entire season was set on the weekend of Barney and Robin's marriage. And then they finally get married, and you find out in the last episode that, oh, not too long after that, after all of that, after, you know, getting them together in this really difficult relationship, ups and downs, well, they just got a divorce. And then the mother, who had been introduced in the show in the last season and was played by a great actress, and everybody really came to like, oh, she died of cancer. And the kids say, oh, Dad, you're still in love with Aunt Robin. And they got him together with Aunt Robin, which sucked. It was just terrible. I actually haven't watched the show since then, not even in reruns. But I read that there had been an alternate ending where the mother doesn't die, which would have been a lot better. So this would be one that they could fix and kind of retcon the ending. Okay, I'm almost out of time here. And number 2, I've got My Name Is Earl, starring Jason Lee. It ran from 2005 to 2009. What a great show. About this guy who who does bad things all the time, wins the lottery ticket for like $100,000, then gets hit by a car, and in the hospital discovers karma and decides to make a list and right all the wrongs that he's done throughout his life, and good things happen to him when he does good things for other people. That was great. Really fun show. It ran 4 seasons, and at the 4th season, the creator, Greg Garcia, asked NBC, and this is during the time that NBC were being real jerks, and this is when they took the Tonight Show away from Conan and all that stuff. And he said, well, I have this cliffhanger about Earl's kids I'd like to do, but are we coming back for a 5th season? They said, yeah, go ahead and do it. So he did it, and then they canceled them anyway. So the show ended on a cliffhanger. That really sucked. It says something about the creator, Greg Garcia, who went on to create another show called Raising Hope that he wisely took over to Fox, that all the cast members from this show guest starred on that show and had kind of like a mini reunion, which was great for the fans. But to not have finished that cliffhanger, they could have at least given them like one more episode. So we never found out the question of Earl's of the kids and who the father was, and it was a whole thing, and that really sucked. So that would have been one to come back and not only find out what happened there, but also have Earl finish his list, or at least have some kind of ending. NBC, you suck. And finally, the number 1 show that I'd like to have continued, Quantum Leap. This ran from 1989 to 1993 with Scott Bakula as Sam Beckett and Dean Stockwell as Al Calavici. Sam Beckett is a scientist that creates a way to travel in time using quantum physics, quantum leaping. He calls it leaping. And he goes back into the bodies of other people and, rights, same as before, rights wrong, things that once went wrong. This was a great show. It was a lot of fun. Scott Bakula was great as a character. And it's even in the credits, in the narration of the credits, saying that he takes every leap he takes, he hopes that it's the leap home, because he's kind of lost in time. And as he's leaping around, his memory is kind of like Swiss cheese. He can't remember everything, and you find out in one episode where he actually does leap home that he has a wife that he couldn't even remember, but he sacrifices his time with her by going back in there to save Al, who's stuck at the past at that point. And he helps her, and then he forgets about her again. And in the last episode, there's actually, after helping out Al again, and because he had been a war prisoner or something, and fixing his life, this card comes up, this black background with this little card comes up that says, "Oh, Dr. Beckett never leapt home again. He never went home again." And we're like, what? Are you kidding me? After watching for 5 seasons and hoping that Sam, who's a great guy, just a wonderful guy, would get home and get back to his wife, he never got home? What a sucky ending. That was terrible. I don't think I was the only one that hated that. That is definitely one that I would love for them, and I think one that could actually naturally be continued, to go back and get Sam Beckett home. Give him what, his reward, what he deserved for helping so many people. Give him the happiness that he deserves, because that was terrible. So anyway, that's my list. I'm running low on time here. Let me know what you think. Are there any shows that you were unhappy with the endings that you would like to maybe see continued and fixed with those continuations? Let me know in the comments below, or make your own video. That's fun. It's not officially a tag video, but sure, why not? You can make a video too. Or let me know in the comments down. Okay, so I will see you guys later, and keep watching those TV series. All right, bye.